And this is another video. I mean, this is happening. This is in Ramla. So I'm not sure exactly where that is. It might be the West Bank. That's what I would guess. But a mob of Jewish right-wingers in the city of Ramla is checking vehicles one by one. Jewish cars are allowed to pass. Arab cars are pelted with rocks. When one of the cars nearly crashes, the mob starts cheering. The police, nowhere in sight. Nowhere in sight. So, there's a lot of parity between U.S. police and Israeli police, it seems, which we'll talk a little bit more about later as well. But you can see right here, all of a sudden, pelted with rocks. Pelted with rocks. I mean, he crashes into that median just because scared. I mean, that's crazy. It's crazy that stuff's happening, and it's even crazier to me that we can stand for subsidizing that. We give money to that while people here go hungry. We give money to that while people here don't know how they're going to afford their next rent check. That's how an empire falls. That's how an empire falls right there. And, I see someone says LAPD has a relations station in Israel. Funny you bring that up, because this is something that I knew was going on before this happened, but I think a lot of people are starting to realize this as well and find this out. And it's that this says report criticizes NYPD collaboration with Israel. Report suggests that since 9/11, Israel has trained NYPD, FBI, and other local, state, and federal law enforcement officials. So we see what's going on there, right? We see what's going on in the West Bank. We see what's going on in Gaza, open air prison. We see the apartheid state in Israel, and then we say, wow, what those cops are doing, let's take our cops and let them train and get trained by the same people that are perpetuating this over in Israel. Do you really think the elite and the powers that be in this country are going to have anything to say against Israel when we send our police force over there to train with them against, to train against anti-terrorism tactics, which are going to get used against who? Right? Which are going to get used against who? Black and brown people. And we saw with BLM, it's not even just black and brown. Anyone who's at a protest, you're liable to get you're liable to get beaten. You're liable to get tear gassed. You're liable to get hit with non-lethal bullets that could take your eye out, give you concussion. So that's an insane thing that we do. I couldn't believe it when I first learned it, but we have to come to a reckoning here. We have to come to a reckoning here in this country, especially when it comes with our relationship with Israel, especially when it comes to policing overall. And the fact, like, can this be reformed? Do y'all think this can be reformed? Because I don't know if it can. I don't know if that can be reformed. If this has been beaten, since 9/11, Israel has trained NYPD. Like that's 20 years, right? That's what these tactics, these cops have learned. And it's translating to our streets. And then when we see it in other countries, we can't be surprised. When we see it happening in the West Bank, when we see it happening in the Gaza Strip, we cannot be surprised. We cannot be surprised. So that's pretty much the situation in Israel right now. It's scary. It's scary, and it looks like it's not going to end anytime soon. Like I said, the barrage of attacks are continuing. The barrage of rocket fire into the Gaza Strip is continuing. Right now, the death toll has got up to, I think it's about 55 or 60, with like 20 kids being killed. I mean, it's just gross. Like, if someone in America, right? If some of these people in America who support this, who support Israel, who will never criticize Israel, if there was another occupying force, and it's hard to kind of quantify, or it's hard to, have a really good comparison because we don't have any, adversaries that are our neighbors to us. But if you had, say, our Canada was an adversary of ours, and you had forces from Canada just going into, I don't know, Iowa or Minnesota and forcefully removing people out of their homes that maybe their family has lived in for generations, and telling them to kick rocks, get out of here. Everything you've owned, now it's ours, right? If that was happening, if that very situation was happening, one, of course, people would be outraged. People would want to start, people in this country will want to start a war, right? But then if those very same people attacked, fired rockets, whatever, towards that adversary, we would feel like it was justified. People in this country would feel like it's justified. But when the same situation happens in Palestine, when the same situation happens in the West Bank and in Gaza, now it's, these terrorists are firing rockets against Israel, and Israel has the right to defend itself and destroy civilian buildings. That's the situation in Israel. It's horrifying. Like, just scrolling through Twitter, seeing like the death toll just increase, seeing people like Joe Biden, people like Nancy Pelosi not have a word to say about, the deaths of innocent children, even though they'll come out and say it's wrong for Hamas. It's wrong for Hamas to be firing rockets to Israel, but it's not wrong for Israel to be destroying civilian buildings, civilian infrastructure, and killing kids. It's the most hypocritical thing they could ever do. And they know it is. They know it's hypocritical. They understand it, but they will do it anyway. They will do it anyway because it's politically expedient to them. It's politically expedient to their pockets. It's politically expedient for them to support Israel, with full stop support for Israel, no matter what they do, no matter if, the UN and the international human rights groups and organizations are condemning this. They don't care. They don't care because that does not apply to America in their mind. That does not apply to America, nor does it apply to American allies. And Israel is one of our American allies, so it does not apply to them either. They are an extension of America. And therefore, human rights must not be applied. Those laws must not be applied to us. Those laws must not be applied to people we support, particularly people we support with billions and billions of dollars. And there's the hypocrisy.